Well, welcome. It's Bruce Parker, and thank you and congratulations for investing a little time into yourself. Today's video is going to be kind of giving you a foundation of what to expect from now into the future. Not to be negative, but I saw this the other day and I thought I'd bring it up again because an independent research firm noticed an alarming trend in chiropractic. And if this trend continues, up to 42% of the chiropractors could be out of practice very soon. This trend is coming down to the perception that healthcare is over when insurance is over. That more companies are giving lower reimbursement or no reimbursement, the onset of Obamacare, and the scrutinization of the insurance companies making practice very, very hard. And in fact, in many situations, people are actually leaving practice saying that they can't practice anymore. Well, that's not true. In fact, the majority of the population of chiropractors didn't even have insurance when they first started practicing. Hi, I'm Dr. Bruce Parker. I began practicing in 1977, January 3rd, 1977. I was licensed like December 30th, and it was the holidays, so I had to wait a few days, but I couldn't wait. Graduated from school a couple of months before that, took our tests, got my boards, and I'm in practice, and I was thrilled. I came out of school as a pretty, I would say, straight chiropractor. I had gone, my background in chiropractic is quite different than a lot of people may have. I was injured when I was 13 years old, and I went, after a few weeks and months of actually trying to get better, I ended up going to a chiropractor through my grandmother, and the chiropractor took me in, did no examination, no evaluation, no instrumentation, laid me on the table, and manipulated, I guess, my neck, right and left, because it didn't feel like a very specific adjustment, and sent me home. That was my entrance to chiropractic. The crazy thing was, I started feeling better. My neck started working better, and I was back in school. I thought things were over. But over the next 6 years, I started having some pretty concerning degeneration going on in my body. I started having severe headaches, facial numbness, and then later facial tics, and eye strain, and quite a bit of problems. This reintroduced me to another chiropractor about 7 years later, which told me the chiropractic story and engaged me into a corrective care program, and the rest is history. I was going into the financial world, and I was doing quite well in the financial world, but when I understood chiropractic and the story, I wanted to go ahead, and it made sense to me, and I became a chiropractor. I learned, that the body was controlled, from the brain, and the brain controlled all functions of the body through the nervous system, and interference in the nervous system would cause the body to not function well, and loss of function would cause a problem and a symptom. And that made a lot of sense to me, because in the 6 years that I wasn't getting better, I called it the medical merry-go-round. I was going from one doctor to the next trying to figure out how to fix me, and all they could think about was where to cut or what drug to take. And when I learned about the philosophy of the body being a self-healing regulatory mechanism that would take care of itself, heal itself, as long as it could communicate with itself, it made so much more sense to me. So with that, the idea of the power that makes the body, heals the body, that became my personal philosophy. And 32,000 patients later, the jury's in. Chiropractic works. And that's my excitement. So today, when I'm having people tell me they're having a hard time making it in practice, they're missing it. Practice is not about a financial arrangement. Obviously, a financial arrangement becomes part of it, but that's not what makes chiropractic great. It's the fact that we get sick people well. And with that understanding, I want to go ahead and tell people you can grow a practice. Well, when I was starting out in practice, what I found out was it's not so easy. Probably the same reasons people are having challenges today. And so as I began my practice, I realized that chiropractic worked. It was just totally misunderstood or totally unknown. And our practice became what? Chasing people. We were always chasing new patients. And if you look at most of the ads today for seminars, it's how to get more and more new patients. It seems like that's the key. If we get lots of patients, we'll be happy. But then chasing patients becomes into what? Chasing money. Because it seems like we can't get enough new patients, and then we find out that the people can't afford it. Well, that's not true. My last year in practice, I sold my practice, and the doctor coming in to take it over, he actually took all the new patients for 12 months. And in that 12 months, I just saw my maintenance patients. Patients I'd seen before. All new patients went to the new doctor, and during that time, I averaged 343 visits a week for a solid year with no new patients. That's because my practice was a chiropractic practice. The philosophy was understood, and the desires were there because I understood the values. The only reason we chase people and chase money in practice is when we're trying to sell a value that's not understood. In fact, most people really don't realize that chiropractic is a service, and they've reduced it to a commodity. And when they start looking at pricing or trying to compete with pricing, it's always about pricing, that's a commodity. When you are a valuable service, people will pay for that valuable service as they see how it'll benefit them. So if your practice is not growing or if it's declining, the questions you have to ask yourselves is it really the lack of new patients, or is it your inability to retain patients? Are you explaining the value of care to the extent the patient's willing to pay? If people are coming in to get a sore back fixed, you have to look at that old Visa commercial, sore back, 19 cents for bare aspirin, 10 cents for ice pack, or correct the cause, invaluable or priceless. But most people look at back pain as what we do. And that's a total, in fact, when I was in school, my entire time through college, I never once heard about treating a back pain. I was at Palmer, Iowa, and it was in the time when we were still teaching philosophy at school, and chiropractic was 100% about healthcare. Edward Deming said 94% of new business fail, but it's not the people who fail. So if you're struggling in practice right now, it's not because of you. If you're struggling, you're not the failure. It's probably the system or the lack of a system that you're following that's failing you. So before I start sending you videos on practice development, I feel it's important for you to know a little bit more about me. What I've experienced and why I feel qualified to be giving advice. I want you to know I struggled in the beginning. I had a really hard time. But because I had a strong why in my life, I persevered, and eventually I figured it out. I'm amused today when I hear how it was easy in the past, and that's why, the chiropractic dinosaurs don't have a clue on how to build a practice today. I was listening to an ad not too long ago by a person that was selling their services, and they were saying that they had gone to a 80s dinosaur consultant who didn't have a clue on how to build a practice. All they know how to do is build insurance. Well, I'm telling you what, we built practices before, and I am a dinosaur, that's why I got my picture right there. I built practices before insurance was available. In fact, when I came out of school and began practice in 1977 in California, we were not allowed to advertise. We could put a business card in the yellow pages, and that was it. So we had to really learn how to build a practice. In fact, I think today is more like it was back then. We didn't have insurance, we couldn't advertise, but we grew big practices. In fact, I built 13 of them over a period of time. So because we had it so easy, we didn't have to learn what it takes today. We certainly do. Practicing chiropractic in the 70s was not so easy. The 80s brought its challenges. I remember in the 80s, we were talking about losing the ability to use insurance. And in fact, in the 90s, we had more and more managed care programs. In 2000s, we had even more managed care programs. There's been challenges in life in every area all the time. They don't leave. So let's face it. There's always challenges, and the challenges are not the problem. It's how we respond to the challenges that counts. The challenges in chiropractic have been, do you practice chiropractic or do you practice therapy? Now, when I was first starting in practice before insurance, people pretty much were looking at chiropractic as our unique factor. Interference in the nervous system, making adjustments and correcting them. And it wasn't until insurance came out that we started noticing more and more therapeutic devices designed to bill insurance. So today, people are telling me that people are having a hard time in practice because people can't afford it. But I walk into their practices and they're charging $180 a visit. And because they got into the insurance model. So the question is today, which way are you going to go? Are you going to continue down the insurance path and complain that people can't afford it? Or do you start looking at a new process? Well, what I did is I wrote a book called The Social Outcast because I actually came to that fork in the road myself. I came out of school and I had a hard time practicing. And I started what I call selling out. I started trying to do things that more appeased people. But The Social Outcast is a story about how I got adjusted when I was 13 years old, how I degenerated, how I got the problems. Have you ever considered being sick? What it's like? You don't realize, I had severe facial tics and some neurological challenges, and I was considered a weirdo because I had all these tics all the time, and my eyes were straining. And so in high school, it wasn't so much the pain in my headaches, it was the rejection of the kids around me that became a big issue for me. So I want you to realize, as a chiropractor, you're serving the masses, and you're serving people that are sick. And if you see those people, believe me, I would have paid anything to get out of that dilemma of having the neurological tics I had. I never questioned ever the cost of care. I didn't have insurance. When I first went to chiropractor, I paid cash when I was 18 years old. I started paying cash for care. I'd never questioned it because what I wanted was the value that was promised to me, not some deal. So The Social Outcast is a story of me starting practice, going through it, and then trying to practice in an allopathic world, selling out to the allopathic world for a while, and then later standing to my truth and making some big changes, and how I eventually developed 13 clinics. If you'd like more information on The Social Outcast, it's available on thesocialoutcast.com. Download a free copy and just say Bruce sent you. No, it's just a free copy for you. And read it, because there's some great pearls of wisdom in there. It talks about my story going from a stressed out overwhelmosaurus into a on-purpose warrior disruptosaurus. Because if I'm going to be a dinosaur, I'm going to at least go ahead and give myself good definitions of them. Understand this: the people that make things in the world are disruptive. Think of people like Eminem. You remember in Eminem, he went on the Emmy Awards with Elton John, and when he's done, he flipped off the world. Eminem has been disruptive. Lady Gaga is disruptive. Obama is disruptive. People that have different changes and become, their own thinkers, Madonna, even Oprah Winfrey, they're all disruptive. They don't go along with the flow. You can't promote chiropractic going along with the flow, because the flow is medicine, controlled by medicine, wanted by medicine. And the truth about chiropractic is, it's a business. And until you understand that you have a business and start operating it as a business, you're not going to really realize how you can impact a community. Chiropractic for most people is an alter ego, but that's not really what we signed up for. We signed up to change the world. Most people I talk to that are chiropractors tell me they want to change the world. They want to see people get off needless drugs and surgery. Yet they go out there and their practices are open about 18 hours a week, and they freak out about people can't afford their care. Why would anybody open up a business that people can't afford? They're missing the point. They've made it too emotional. And I will say this, that emotion is for the bedroom and facts are for the boardroom. We need to start understanding the facts behind our business and start looking at chiropractic as a business. And as we do, that's when we start noticing some massive growth. So, you have choices. One of the biggest realizations I had in my life was, my life is the sum total of my decisions. Yet to make good choices, you have to know what the choices are. And chiropractic is an entrepreneurial endeavor. There's no big old boys network in chiropractic that's going to help you get started. There's no hospitals to go to and build a practice out of the emergency room. You don't have, the insurance companies or the pharmaceutical companies building you practices like they do in the medical profession. So entrepreneurs have to be the ones that have a vision and go make it happen. And the truth is, in chiropractic, a lot of people didn't realize that. A lot of people I've talked to told me that, my God, I was going to be a doctor. I signed up to be a doctor, and now I'm out there having to go out and get my own patients, and I have to sit there and balance the books, and oh my God, that wasn't what I always signed up for. So your choices are clear. And if you're struggling in practice, you might want to consider if you're even where you should be right now. You see, I don't believe everybody should be in their own practice. And this is through my 30 plus years of being in the fields, developing my own clinics. I've had 138, I believe, associates over the years. And not everyone's cut out to be a solo practitioner. But you can practice solo. And when you do, that means you're the head chief bottle washer. I mean, you do everything. A solo practitioner is in charge of everything: marketing, delivering services, being a manager, taking care of your staff, hiring, firing, banking obligations, financial obligations. I mean, a solo practitioner has a job, and that's called operating their business. A solo practitioner is not in business, because a solo practitioner, to me, I define business as an entity that you can leave and it continues on. If you owned a yogurt store, in a shopping mall, and you took a vacation, no one in town cares. They come up to your store and they buy their servings of yogurt and their toppings, and they don't care who's selling it to them as long as it's good. The owner should never have to even show up. That's called a business. But in our practice, if you leave for a day, what happens? No service. And that's why it's so silly that we look at our practices as this, because it's actually a sentence to always be having to work. And don't get me wrong, I'm not believing that we should be out of practice and just hang out and lay on a beach someday, but I'm saying that no matter where you are in your life, you want to do other things and work. I'm a chiropractor. I work hard. I love being in my practice, but I love traveling too. I love going to camping with my kids. I love whatever. When I used to ride horses and I did racing cars and all kinds of things. And what happened was my practice allowed me to have those luxuries. But if I was a solo practitioner, I would have never had time to do them. And the people I meet right now that are in practice, they're craving a vacation, but they don't take vacations because they tell me it costs them double. They got to pay for somebody to operate the practice if they're gone. They usually lose business while they're gone, or they shut their doors down and they lose the business when they're gone. And then they got to rebuild it when they get back, plus the cost of the vacation. And it doesn't look good, so a lot of people don't do it. Another option is a group practice. Now, coming out of school and having no experience whatsoever, and you go become a solo practitioner, there's lots of things in life you haven't learned. If you go join a group, and you have a bunch of your friends, at least you can share some of the obligations as you're trying to build a practice. But the challenge in a group practice is everybody wants to do the same thing: adjust. Very few people want to take care of the responsibilities of marketing and management and business management. So therefore, if you don't have a good business plan, a group practice is usually the blind following the blind. Or the other definition is when I've seen chiropractors go together and they rent space together, and they each have their own rooms or whatever, but there's no congruency. The front desk has to answer the phone for different people, different ways, different fees. It's just incongruent. It's like a bunch of kids in college, being roommates. It doesn't have congruent, cohesive feel to it. Now, what I recommend for new practitioners coming out of school is to become an employee. In my practices, I used to hire what we called independent contractors. They'd come in there and they would try to build their own practice in the back room, and truthfully, it's hard. I mean, the owner's name is on the front. The owner's got the experience. The front desk people they work for the owner. And when you come in, to rent space in the back, a lot of times, you don't have the same opportunities, and it's kind of harder. You have to go out and meet people on the street. But more importantly, you don't have experience as an independent contractor. As an employee, I would bring doctors in, and I'd get them working as chiropractors, doing examinations, adjusting. I don't use employees for marketing because they don't have the experience yet. So I would take the time sometimes to go out and do the marketing while I had my other doctors taking care of patient services. So looking for an employee's opportunity is great. If you own a practice and you want to expand it, expanding with employee chiropractors is great because you're giving the person a salary that they can live on, and they're not stressed out about money all the time. If they're worried about money because they don't have a percentage, they're not going to be productive. So an employee is a very great way to start, or sometimes a great way to be for a career. And then lastly, the practice of the independent contractor is kind of a double-edged sword. Right now, if I wanted to go into practice with my experience, I would go out and look to be an independent contractor because I've got confidence to know how to build a practice. And independent contractors pay nothing until they make money. And the percentages that seem to be standard in our industry right now, you can't run a practice for that. Very few people are operating 50% overhead practices. Yet people are getting 50-50 deals all day as an independent contractor. And that means they only pay 50% of their overhead when they're making money. If the first month in practice they make no money, they pay nothing. So it's one of those deals. Independent contractor is great for the independent contractor, and it's a bad deal for the owner. So in my first years of practice, once I started off as a solo practitioner, and as a solo practitioner, I had no one to fall back on except for the banks, having to borrow money to operate my practice. And my frustrations was, guess what? How to get new patients, how to handle finances, how to have patients to stay under care from pain care to well care. I remember myself saying one day that I felt like I was in a 100-inning baseball game, and the score was 10-300. I mean, in the 79th inning, it just wasn't exciting because people would come and go. Nothing was really critically happening. In practice, a person would come in and they had a bad structural problem that was severe. And I would start seeing them, and then 8-9 visits later, they feel good, they leave the door. And another one comes in, same situation. You get them out of pain, and they're out of care again. And I got so bored because I never got to see anybody get better. I saw them get symptomatically better, but I knew they were not better. You can't rehabilitate a spine in 12 visits. It takes a while. The neurology has to catch up and everything else to rehabilitate someone from a dysfunctional spine to a functional skeletal system, and a functional spine takes some time. And it's fun to watch people go through that process, but it's frustrating when I'm only getting able to take people out of care. And guess what? When you're only treating pain, you need more new patients. You can't build a strong practice if you're doing pain relief because people will come and go. And in fact, you have to have new patients just to maintain some sort of a patient level. And the average is pretty much, what I hear throughout the world is 3 times a week for 4 weeks, twice a week for 4 weeks, once a week for 4 weeks, and then they're done. And then maintenance care once a month, which no one stays for. I used to say 3 for 4, 2 for 4, 1 for 4, out the door. When you're maintaining an average in the United States of 15 new patients a month, with a 3 for 4, 2 for 4, 1 for the door, you hardly ever meet a 100-visit week. And you're chronically practicing at about 90 to 100 a week, and there's no sustainable growth there. In this society right now, 100 visits a week, as reimbursements are going down, you will not be able to maintain a good lifestyle unless you have really, really, really great low overhead. So in the past, people either had volume practices and they had high retention practices, or they had insurance practices with high fees. The alternate to me today, your options are to have a moderate to high volume practice with high retention and no longer become an allopath looking to treat back pain, but introduce what I call the chiropractic lifestyle, where people start living a lifestyle where they exercise, they eat well, they move well, and they get adjusted to maintain the communication between the brain and the tissue cell. And that's a lifetime wellness program. Things were no different when I began than when you began, if you understand the game. And the game is clearly this: discover what the public needs and wants and deliver that service. Now that sounds interesting. When I research people, no one wants chiropractic. They want the benefits of chiropractic. They want to experience what happens after you've been under care for a while, but they don't associate. There's no education out there that brings people to the realization that the body needs to have internal communication in the nervous system, needs to be fed well, and needs to move well, and all those things. They have been educated by allopaths. You realize in 1847 the AMA was formed, and their preamble for business was to eliminate natural healers and to align doctors with pharmacology. Hey, if you don't like the AMA, I understand, but you know what? They followed their game plan, and that's what they've done. And therefore, the entire world now is aligned with pharmacology, but it doesn't work. So today we have to understand then the needs of the people are to have a healthy, expressive, body, a healthy life. And so the way to promote that is not to promote that we get people out of pain, is to promote people that that's what we do. We need to change our message. So the mistake most chiropractors are making right now is we're out there promoting ourselves as allopaths. And this is no slam against any person out there, no matter what your loves are. I'm just telling you, if you align with allopaths, you got competition. A lot of people are trying to go and get jobs, to work with, trainers or PTs, and they don't see any reason for you. But if you're so therefore, as a chiropractor, to be accepted, and I believe a lot of people want to do an allopathic practice so they get more acceptance from their community that they do sports injuries or whatever. We'll do those things for sure, but give the message of structure and function. Give the message of what chiropractic really is, and then they'll see you as unique. As long as we're competing in a world of allopaths, we're just another allopath. But when you go out there and tell the chiropractic story, you start aligning yourself. Because my first aha moment was the public only wants pain relief. That may not sound like a big thing to you, but understand this: my background in education, of chiropractic education, was to increase health. And I didn't really ever have back pain. And yet I was a chiropractic patient when I was young because I did have a fall on my neck, on my head. And I had a lot of neurological problems that responded through chiropractic care, but my neck didn't hurt. What hurt basically was I wasn't functioning right. And I would talk to people about, pain not being that important, but guess what? To them it was. See, sometimes the values that we have on things aren't the same values other people have. And to me, treating back pain all day is boring. Big deal. I mean, you rub somebody's back, the inflammation goes down, they feel better. I didn't do anything to change a person's life. The patients that I've seen over my career are unbelievable. A girl that was in casts because her legs were flaring out and she couldn't walk, never had taken a step. She was being put in leg casts to try to have her casts, her feet facing forward. But every time they took the casts off, they're still facing out because it wasn't her legs that were the problem, it was her hips problems. And I was taking care of her mother, and I mentioned to her mother that what was going on, and we checked this little girl out. We had her walking in a few weeks after a couple of years of failure trying to treat the symptom. We have a great amount of information no one else knows. See, people respond to what they know or they believe in. Truth is perception. And the public's perception of chiropractic is that of treating backaches. So don't get upset if people, if number one, if you don't like being a back pain doctor, you want to be a family wellness doctor, then don't get upset with the public they see you as a back pain doctor. Just realize that's the message we've been sending. That's the message that we've clearly sent for the last how many years? If you remember the onslaught of advertising, or probably no one is old enough to remember that on this, listening to this tape, but if you ever heard the history of the dinosaur days, we used to run these ads that said 18 danger signals. And we had pictures of people with lightning bolts coming out of their backs. We sent this message loud and clear that we treat back pain. And that's what built practices. Well, I'd never treated back pain until I began to practice. People came into my office talking about these, hitches in their get-alongs and all these types of things. I didn't know how to even answer the requests. I had no idea. In fact, my friend called me up one day and said, "What do you do for a hot low back?" I go, "A hot low? I don't know. Put ice on it. I mean, it's hot, make it cold." I didn't know what he meant, what a hot low back was. That's how naive I was, because we never had looked at chiropractic. In fact, if you look in any of the chiropractic history books, and there's nothing mentioning about back treating. It's all about health and function. So I began to answer their requests, and I say this, it chipped at my soul. You see, we're really good at structure and function. Chiropractors understand the spine, the nervous system, the skeletal systems, the articulations. We can make that body much better, much quicker, and we can go in and relieve pain really quick and look like heroes. And actually, what was happening is I started realizing it was easier just to go in there and manipulate, the spine to make people feel better than anymore even trying to educate them, because it was just hitting on a wall all the time. They didn't want to hear it. And so I started doing that, and it chipped at my soul, as I said, and I fell into an allopathic trap. And then one day, Lynn, this is Lynn, and that's me with my funky hair. It looks like a little potbelly, that was growing back then too. This is about a year and a half into practice. And Lynn came in. Actually, she didn't really come in. She was hauled in. My office looked out on the parking lot, and I saw this van drive up, and they stopped in the red zone, opened the doors, and they kind of carried one on each side, kind of carried in this woman who looked like she hadn't slept in a month. And we examined her, and she had literally no lumbar curve. She had a totally straight lumbar curve, lumbar spine. And I began working with her and started adjusting her. And every day she was walking in pain. I'd see her every day, and after a while I saw that truck drive up, and I started having knots in my stomach, because there she was again, and I was feeling like a failure, because I'd gotten the allopathic trap that we fix people really quick. And a month and a half had gone by. A month and a half, and she was still being carried in almost every other day. And so I walked in there one day to tell her, I can't help you. Lynn, you're not getting better. And she looked at me with these eyes and said, "Dr. Parker, don't give up on me. I know chiropractic is my answer. I know you're the chiropractor that can deliver that. Just the body needs time to heal. And just don't give up on me." And I said, wow. I mean, it was a powerful moment. But at the time, I said, okay. But Lynn taught me, reinforced me or whatever, that it takes time for the body to heal. But because I was in my ego so big, I was going to be her hero and fix her and get her back out there. That when I was looking at her, the face of failure in my eyes caused me to pull back. But I stayed with her, and her goal was one day, they were a gull wing. Her and her husband rode these gull wings. Her goal was to ride across the country on a gull wing. And the day that I got in the mail a picture of her and her husband at the Continental Divide, on their gull wing with a big smile on their face, well, it's bringing the same tears to my eyes right now that it did then. And I realized that this girl got her life back. As chiropractors, we restore life. And sometimes it doesn't come the next day. 6 visits, 7 visits. No, it's a process. It's a process. So at that time, I had the big idea of chiropractic when I came out of school. I will say that, but I lost it because I was being confronted every day with the challenges that the population was having. The lack of understanding that the population had, the aches and pains the population had. And I started buying into it. But with Lynn, she gave me the big idea of practice. And in practice, our job is to look at people, understand them, and then guide them to where they need to be. Don't worry that you tell someone you got to see them for a year, 2 years maybe 2 months. They walked in with they thought it was just they needed a quick crack on their back, and they found out that they have a degenerative problem and they need corrective care. Don't be worried about giving that recommendation. It's not you. You're just a messenger. You're telling them, Mrs. Jones, you got a problem here, and you're having an early sign right now. Well, I don't want to get under care. I said, I don't blame you. I wouldn't want to get under care either. But you know what? It's necessary. Without care, you're not going to have, a good thing. You're not going to have the life you want to have. So at that point, the big idea of practice for me became, I've got to run a business. And the business is designed to educate the population of the devastating effects of the vertebral subluxation. And the purpose of the practice is to also detect and correct vertebral subluxation. That's it. We would educate. In fact, I changed the word, and this is something that some people have a problem with, I'm sure, because people get hung up sometimes on terminology. But what I found out was the word subluxation didn't communicate well. Dysfunction did. And so I would tell somebody, Mrs. Jones, we want to have normal function. If our body is functioning normally, the natural expression of a normally functioning body will be health. If a body becomes dysfunctional, the natural expression of a dysfunctional body will be dis-ease. So dysfunction causes irritation, inflammation, and results in pain. Dysfunction causes irritation, inflammation, and results in pain. In most situations, people then go to doctors that give anti-inflammatories or anti-inflammation type treatment, and they'll get asymptomatic for a short period of time, and that's become the paradigm of health. In our practice, Mrs. Jones, we have to get you out of pain so we can begin to correct the problem. So that being the foundational point of view of my practices, I always did a consultation that was actually giving this information. So people, everybody comes in because they have pain. Everybody walking into every office wants to get out of pain yesterday. They don't want to come back, and they want somebody else to pay for it. I got it. Okay, I've had over 30,000 patients. I got it. It's not the question, it's how we respond to the question. So every patient walks in and gets a consultation and is starting to be led to a new understanding. Everybody gets an x-ray. A lot of people, even today, this is being taped in 2012, and I'm talking to a lot of people who no longer use x-ray. Understand this. Actually, my last couple of practices, I located them close enough to a imaging center that I would go to the imaging center and I would cut a deal for my patients if I sent them over there for cash. And I also gave them the standing orders on how I wanted my x-rays taken, standing, weight bearing, those types of things. And I loved it. They would send me a digital x-ray on disc, and I didn't have to sit there and have an x-ray in my office. So I actually like not having an x-ray as long as you have a place that'll take them the way you want them. But I x-ray everybody. X-ray is the primary diagnostic tool of chiropractors. I can do a long story on some stories about not taking x-rays, but just know this. If you were actually found one day that someone was accusing you of a malpractice situation, and they found that there's some bony problems under x-ray, pathologies or whatever, that you didn't take an x-ray to determine that, some people say that's malpractice. Well, in 1976, Smith Yo It was a Supreme Court finding that said that if you do not use the tools of your peers, the natural tools of your peers, the natural tool of a chiropractor is a X-ray. If you don't avail yourself of the natural tools, it may not be malpractice, but probably will be criminal negligence. Because if you missed something that became a challenge and you didn't take an X-ray, which is common practice, you're negligent. So I always X-ray as part of my program. And then when I started really working with people, I did not need to be motivated anymore. You know, a lot of people tell me, hey, I got to go to a seminar, man, and get negative and get motivated. You know, what I finally realized is that I don't need motivation. I just need a big why. Because you know what? At times, it's tough. Chiropractic practice can be tough. I did it for many, many years. I got it, especially high volume. It's tough. It's physically demanding. It's mentally demanding. You know, it takes a lot of time. The more successful you get, the less time you have with your family because you're in the office more. So what became my why? Well, it came along one day about 7 years later. Her name is Jennifer. And when I had Jennifer in my arms, I started having this compelling future and a responsibility for my daughter. And of course, look at that picture right there. I know that was her personality. I had my hands full. You know, now the one right there next to the tall trophy, the second from the right, that was her winning Miss Hawaiian Tropic. We Miss Hawaiian Tropic. And the trophy is bigger than her, but that was my handful. She later graduated, you know, from chiropractic college. And this picture right here, this is not chiropractic college. This is her Bachelor of Science degree. In this picture here, she's never had a childhood sickness. She's never really been sick. She never has had a immunization. She's a chiropractic kid. And that same ornery picture you saw, she still has today. She became a dancer for the NBA. You know, that's the Clippers. You may not like the team, but you got to like the girl. And then now she's an entrepreneur, and she has her own little developing fashion business she's doing. So she's been okay, but that was my why. From day one, I did my practice to provide a life and safety for my children and for my family. So to invest in your passion, you must have a focus. There's a book out called Killing Sacred Cows. It's by Garrett Gunderson, and this book is about investing. And he says, invest in your passion. I've always been that way. We've recently hooked up. We've become friends because our philosophy is the same. While a lot of people are in their practice looking at other investments, you know, that you can't control, put all your attention to your practice and build that. It can become an incredible lifestyle. And it gives you your vision, your plan. So what I discovered then in this whole process of trying to build my passion, you know, take care of my family and build my practice was the disconnect. I saw it again, and I wanted to promote a family healthcare cash-paying practice. I wanted people to come in, understand chiropractic. I want them to pay, stay, and prefer. Stay, pay, and refer, excuse me. And that's what we wanted. Although the public sees chiropractic as pain and injury and good for chronic pain, and sometimes after they discover that, they might understand that it's good for more than just pain relief benefits, but it's a lot of work, and they want their insurance to pay. So no matter what my passion was at the time, you know, wanting to go ahead and have an incredible life for my family, I used to say, I have all these beautiful plans, and then the day starts. So my challenges are no different than anybody else's. It's just, again, how you respond to them. So it's been frustrating. And more importantly, the country is sick. And the answer people have, they're clueless about the answer. I can say this, and by the way, this is a gut check for you. If you can't say right now that anybody that you meet would have a healthier, more productive body in 12 months under your care, then you shouldn't be a chiropractor. See, I believe that. I believe that anybody I see, I can improve their health at some level, you know, and include their quality of health, their quality of life. because people have bad habits. People have bad, belief systems in our planet. So if I only did that, I'd be very, very happy. It's interesting. We look at in chiropractic offices. Probably at your worst, you're getting 50% of the patients better, and probably in normal you're getting 70 to 80% symptomatically better even. And realize this, and in those symptomatically better patients, if they stay with you, they get overall healthier. And in medicine, you don't even see that. It's something like, surgery is 22%, success rate. And a lot of the problems, like the common cold, well, that's not a cure. It never goes away because it's a natural detox process. So, the common cold's a good thing. We call it the common hot. That's what I call it, is the hot, because I'm never cold, I'm always hot. But that's a natural process in our body. So truly in healthcare, we rock. And yet the nation's clueless about it. Why do we want to align with the allopaths that are failing when we have a message that gets people well? So what I learned, to attract new patients, I had to mention pain. And this became in my mind the disconnect. Okay, this is not what we do. We don't treat pain. So I started doing ads and things trying to promote the message. I remember doing an Ask the Doctor column in the paper, Ask Dr. Parker or something, whatever it was, Ask the Doctor. And I would try to educate through the newspaper. And I would try to educate. It doesn't work. People are never motivated to feel better. People want to do two things in life. They want to avoid pain or move towards pleasure. And if people right now going to a doctor, there's no pleasure in seeing a doctor, and they're not going to go there unless they're trying to get out of pain. So we had to understand that. And in doing so then, the easiest patient to attract, by the way, we're pain patients, but they were not wellness, motivated in their mind. So, and this issue is still today. The easiest to attract are people in pain. The easiest to attract are people in pain with insurance. So there's our practice. We're all going after people in pain with insurance. And those practices, all I hear is I need more new patients because they don't come in droves. So we have to answer that question. When I served the chiropractors, they said they want family well-care cash practices. And this is the area that I decided to specialize in for the development of a chiropractic practice. How do I get pain-motivated people that want their insurance to pay to come in? First of all, how do I attract that person? How do I get them in my office? And then what's my procedure to move a person that's coming in for pain relief into an understanding of what chiropractic really is? And that's what I became later called the Parker process. Because it's a process. The question became, again, how does one reach a public that needs and wants your benefit, yet doesn't know it's a result of what you do? We go to school to become chiropractors. We spend a lot of money for education, invest a lot of money into our practice to build a business, and then we hang the word chiropractor outside. And the word chiropractor doesn't mean much to most people. To some people, it has a negative connotation, and to other people, it's just confused. Because, you treat back pain, and then all of a sudden a person walks in, they see a chiropractor, talking about health. They go, what's this about health, man? I got a bad back. Or they'll see children in your practice. That's what's really cool. We have a wall of fame in our practices, and we have all these pictures of children. They go, what are these kids on the wall for? Do they have back problems? No, I'm glad you asked. Let me tell you what the story is. And we go forward, because that becomes a problem. So number one, we got to tell the truth about chiropractic, but more importantly, about health and health care. The value and the benefit of chiropractic is not we're good at backaches. We got to get the point across to the people and become unique and different. And the strategies most people use to attract patients are the wrong strategies. They're attracting people to come in for a massage because they think people like massage. And you know what? Not everybody likes massage. Not everybody wants to be touched or massaged. But they advertise free massage, and they bring them to their office, and then before they know it, they're in the office being examined. And they don't understand why. I came for a massage, and why are you examining me? And the doctor feels that they're in their office, so now they're going to go ahead and move them over to chiropractic. I mean, it was an idea of attracting people, but why not just get overt with it? I would be doing, talks. I was doing dinner talks and other types of talks in the community. And my talk was all about restoring health. And I didn't go out there and just talk about subluxation, and people criticize me for that. But you know what? That's a word that doesn't register with people. What I proposed the question was always this. We look at lifestyle. It breaks you down. So is it possible that lifestyle could actually rebuild you? I also point out that a lot of people start getting broken down by lifestyle. And when they're doing that, their function is changing in their body, and they start taking drugs, they feel better, they think that drugs are the answer. But truly, the drugs don't rebuild the body, they just keep it so you can't feel the pain. We have to look at our strategies, and the strategies are to get out there and tell the truth. When the purpose becomes greater than yourself, the warrior emerges from your soul. I just like that. Because quite honestly, we got to realize, and that's what happened to me. And it happened to me in about 5 years of practice, when I was confronted with being so frustrated with dealing every day with people that didn't understand what chiropractic was. They were coming to my practice and they're arguing about the payments as they walk through the door, or trying to make insurance deals as they walk through the door. Everything was about the deal, and nothing was ever about really what chiropractic was about. And one day I said, no more. I'm not taking it anymore. And I started I tell the truth. So my foundation of thinking at that time became, never build a business to only make money. If you are building your practice based around just finances, what seems to be the right deal, you don't have any substance there. Because finances are just exchange for a service. And if we're cutting a deal about if they call you up and try to get a good deal on the service, first of all, it's no longer a service, it's a commodity. We build a business that will bring value to another human being. Chiropractic will bring value to anybody under care for a period of time. And you'll always have a business this way, and you'll have an extraordinary life. Chiropractic, when I stood up for the principles of chiropractic in my practice, not only did I develop 13 clinics that were all pretty much referral and cash-based clinics. By the way, I'll take insurance, but to me, it's like going to a grocery store with a coupon for milk. 47 cents off. I mean, to me, that's all insurance is anymore, is a coupon. I will not join a managed care company because they want to cut me down. They want to control my practice. I can't do that. I can't have an insurance secretary tell me how to practice. They're not licensed. And so I opt out of those things. But if somebody walks in with a PPO, and I give my recommendations based on what I think is necessary to get the patient the benefits that they're looking for. I also basically understand this. I've been under chiropractic care now for over 40 years. And it's not been over-treating, by the way. I maintain a healthy life. I've not been to a medical doctor since I was 16. And I don't think I ever will. My mother at 91, she doesn't go to medical doctors either. We both have lived a natural life, a chiropractic lifestyle. And we've outlived our entire family that all use doctors continuously. Me and my mother are rebels. And so in that situation, I know it works for me. I don't want to put off all my little quirks to everybody, and you have to have your own philosophies, but I'll just stay with those two. So in doing so, I built people come into my practice, and I built an extraordinary life. So I'm going to show you a little bit about the chiropractic, the life that chiropractic built for me. And I'm going to show you how I kind of went through my life a little bit, not to impress you or to brag, but just to show you some possibilities and things that turned me on, and the things that I always credit to chiropractic. You see, when you invest in a business that you control, there's always benefits and there's consequences at the same time. So there I am. I'm building a practice, literally. This was my third office I was getting ready to build. Pretty funky looking clothes back in those days. But I got into it, man. I had 2 clinics going at the time, and I started coming over here, and I got involved. So I took practice building to literal value. I got into it. This here was the waiting room. And I look about 12, and there's my mother, and my stepson. This is back this office was built in the late 70s, so you can see the kind of the funky look we had back then. and the stained glass. I had that made, Health Through Chiropractic, pretty cool. And we enjoyed this situation. This is an office, how my offices looked in later years. This is an office I built in 2007. I've gone to more of a minimalist look. I've gotten into more of a zen-y look. I like this look. I love the hard floors, and in my office I had hardwood floors. But this is what we have now. You're not going to see a lot of brochures around, SAMI, syphilis, and some of the things that we used to have years ago, because we want to. I relate to a high quality patient. The people I work with are mostly executives. The blue collar today is white collar, by the way. Most people are working behind a computer instead of in the farm. So our offices, we're clean. I used to call my office clean, mean, low, high profit machines. One thing, ABM stands for always be marketing. So there I was, bad picture. I had to scan this thing because they're so old. We didn't have digital pictures back in these days. This is the 70s, man. So there I was doing an open house. There's another office we had. There I am with my wife doing an open house. Get the idea. I love open houses. Here's a strategy for you. I would have an open house about once a month. And we would invite people by. And as I met people in the street, I'd give them my card. I'd get their cards. Number one, I used to teach for the Parker Foundation, Parker College, and Jim Parker always said, WOC, whip out cards. And I took that idea, but what I noticed was I gave out cards, and no one hardly ever showed up with one. So I started getting cards. GTC, get the card. If I meet somebody, I don't carry cards on purpose. And I'll kind of ruffle around. God, I must be out. Do you have one? And I get their card, and then I give them a call. Hey, Mrs. Jones, I met you the other day. It was great. I got your card. Hey, listen, I'm having a little open house in my office next Thursday. I'd love you to come by and say hi, and I'll show you around my practice. And so about once a month, I had a Thursday at 4:30 till 7. Every Thursday, it was 4 o'clock till 7 o'clock. We had an open house once a month. And I'd bring maybe invite 10, 15 people. Not a big party. I'd walk them around the office and educate them about chiropractic. I would show them the different rooms that we had. I would show them what we did in those rooms. I showed them our diagnostic tools. I showed them our X-ray stuff, and explained. We had the EMGs, and we'd show them how we monitor the nervous system by a computer, and all these things. And eventually, the conversation of their health would come up. And probably at least 4 out of 5 times, or 50% of the time minimally, I would end up making a patient out of that person. So open houses I did lots of them. Here's another one at our place we call Back in Action. And this was my marketing director. I had a marketing director too. So we're out there, and the marketing director was going out, taking to the community our services, letting people know what we do, and bringing people in. I also did a radio show. And the radio show, was all about lifestyle. We didn't talk about how to get rid of back pain. We talked about how to enhance life. And this is on Sundays, every Sunday. So we did that show. And then AHF, always have fun. That yellow card there, number 16, it says in red, Discover Chiropractic. I would be out there. My hobby was racing, and this was down in Mexico. Actually, at this race, those are the Cotty girls for the beer. At this race, I actually took the president of Mexico in my car around the track, and got a lot of press in Mexico, I guess. And then I promoted myself. I would adjust people in my race trailer, and I'd make patients, people as I'm out there. So when I'm having fun, I'm promoting chiropractic. And of course, my playing polo was awesome because I met a lot of extraordinary people playing polo. And in playing polo, I met people literally around the world, introduced chiropractic to them, and I built a pretty good practice right by the polo fields. So I always try to bring, these elements of fun into my practice, but people say they don't get new patients. Just get involved. When I'm racing, I get patients. When I'm playing polo, I get patients. I do, and nothing really, it doesn't cost extra money. I don't really love advertising. It brings in temporary people looking to get out of pain. I bring in lifestyle patients. Then and continue investing in yourself. Never stop learning. This was if you look into this bunch of people, this is Jim Parker in the middle, the short one. There's a lot of leaders in our profession in that picture. That's years ago. That was the people earning their GTO, which was the grand tour of Parker seminars, and you'd go 7 seminars in a row. That one there was me getting 7 GTOs in a row. So that was 7 times 7, 49 seminars in a row. And I was successful in practice, but I'm still in seminars, sitting in the front row. And also I began teaching. And when you're teaching, that's when you really start learning. So in martial arts, what I learned was I went through martial arts, and through the earlier belt systems, I was taking classes. But as I became a brown belt, you had to start teaching to even qualify for a black belt. And as a black belt, you had to have a class. And that's when the learning really comes. Because when you become a black belt, it's great that you know how to do stuff, but can you teach it? I always say this, a master can create other masters. So as a chiropractic coach, I believe that if I can't make somebody else do what I've learned how to do, then I'm not very good at it. So if I'm really a master, my job is to be able to create more masters. I don't want to teach you how to build your practice. I want to teach you how to be able to not only build yours, but how to teach others to build others. That's when you really know stuff. Have great mentors. To the left there was Dr. Jim Parker, in his older ages, and then to the right was Carl. They both passed. That picture of me there, I discovered a no-carb diet. Looking pretty thin back then, but that was a few years ago. And then later, of course, to the left there, I'm receiving the Chiropractor of the Year award. Dr. Parker was gone at that time, and then his successor, Fabrizio Mancini, was now there. So have great mentors in your life. I didn't even begin a lavish lifestyle until I had the level of success and a strong foundational foundation. So a lot of people that come out of school, and I remember one client, he just started practicing. He told me he wanted to buy a BMW. And I said, you know what? You can't really buy a BMW right now because you don't have any money. He goes, well, I just lease it. And I said, well, you haven't really deserved it. You don't really deserve it yet. What have you done to deserve a BMW? Well, I got through school. Well, great, but going through school is not really a reward, is it? I mean, it's something you want to do, but to me, build a practice and have the practice buy you a BMW, that's cool. But a lot of us get all messed up, and then what happens is we're so focused on trying to make our lease payments, we're in stress. We borrow money for things we haven't deserved yet, and it causes stress. So this time, when I became successful in my practice, I started designing, and a lot of people were against this, but I believe in toys, man. They turned me on. They got me excited. I remember being in practice and starting to feel a little bit tired. And I recognized that I had a race in a couple of weeks. And that would kind of turn me on, and kind of motivate me because I had a race in a couple of weeks. And every time I got in my race car and started pulling out the track, I would think, I go, my God, I'm so blessed. Chiropractic has allowed me to do this. Not everybody can go out and race, Porsches on the tracks. So I got my success first, and then I started what I call my life of freedom. The system I teach and the series of tips you'll receive are all derived from the lessons I learned in practice and what helped me live an incredible life. I believe that as we expand our practices, we should expand our lives. So it's your turn to live the life of your dreams. Lesson 1, you're a chiropractor. You deserve a life of privilege in exchange for the good you do for your community. Do you realize that people right now are out in practice making less money than I made as a waiter when I was in college? I've heard this a lot of times. People are struggling because they haven't learned how to practice. That's wrong. If you go out and tell the truth about chiropractic, people will see the value in you and they're going to want your services and they'll be willing to pay for them. You deserve to be the most successful person in town, not the most pitiful person in town. It's just not right that our average chiropractor is netting less than $60,000 netting. So we deserve to have this life. The more good you bring your community, the more deserving you are to a lavish life. I believe that if you're bringing health and wellness to people, you deserve to have, things. So I want you to plan your growth and enjoy the process. Now, I started, deciding to build my dream home. So I went out and I did the same thing in my personal life as I did in my business life. I went out and found land, and started, building a house. So look at that phone. It had a cord that goes inside that old Rolls, but that's a great car for construction, I guess. So that's what I was driving around in. But there was the first, building my first house. There's a framework of it. And there it was, before it was quite done. I call it the house that chiropractic built. Nice thing about big houses, you can have big fireplaces. I love big fireplaces. And there's my daughter staying on the fireplace on the mantle, but she used to get up on the hearth on the top, and then she'd jump off and fly. That was one of our play toys. And of course, in bad weather, you can always ride your bike inside a big house, so it's safe. So we enjoyed that house. Coming home to that 11-foot door, that was all British Honduras mahogany. It was on hinges that were huge with needle bearings. It was so heavy. But it felt good to me when I drove home, every day, to that front door, and then got to relax in that backyard. And I praised chiropractic for everything that I got. And when I built that house when I was 35 years old, that's an area called Rancho Santa Fe, it was an accomplishment. I used a coach. I used a business coach because the answer that I was getting at the time for most chiropractic coaches was always get more new patients. I didn't have any problem getting new patients. What I wanted to learn how to do was the business part, so I could sit there and get things and make it work. I wanted to be able to convert a person that with an allopathic mindset to come into my practice, be willing to pay, go through a corrective care program, and refer their friends and family to me, and stay with chiropractic for life. That was my goal. And getting new patients is not the answer. Having a quick, slick, fast report of findings is not the answer. You're not going to sit there. A lot of people say they want to process new patients in 5 minutes. And then when I look at their retention is terrible. They're not retaining patients for very long. So maybe they have to go through a lot of them, but they lose them in 3 or 4 visits. I kept my patients for long periods of time. My last year in practice, I maintained 343 patient visits a week with no new patients for a year because I learned retention. Learning will also stretch your comfort zone. When I go to seminars, I usually find people do seminars that are doing well more than they're doing. I used to think that I'm not going to go to a seminar because people will see me there and think I'm broken. My ego is so big I couldn't learn when I first started practicing. And now I realize that when I'm teaching, half the time I feel like I'm preaching to the choir. Half the time I'm teaching now, there's people out in the audience that they know way more than I do in a lot of areas. But they're there learning. Don't be afraid to learn. It stretches you. This was one of our retreats where we were doing a ropes course, and we're in front of people. That person in the center is having to talk to a lot of people and expose herself. And later they climb up on the pole, and they go out there and do that ropes course, climb over, things like that. That builds confidence. We had successful people out there climbing fences and climbing up on poles and learning because of it. People say, well, I don't need that. Why would I need that? Well, you know what? Just do it once and see what it's like for you. Now, it's fun. This is one of our cruises. We used to do the annual cruise. My birthday is January 1st. So every year we were doing Bruce's annual birthday cruise. And people would come along. And by the way, my philosophy was Christmas time is for family. And then the Christmas time's over. You and your wife, go get away together and be adults. You've been with families, all through Thanksgiving and then through shopping for Christmas and for the other holiday seasons and Hanukkah. And it's time to get away. And so we go away, on New Year's and have a cruise. And of course, this is how they looked when they were done. Happy. I approached my racing the same way. I started at the bottom. That's that orange helmet and a go-kart. That's me. I'm like 26, 27 years old. I'm in a go-kart. But then I advanced, to a bigger car. That was a real race car. And later I started developing this car that became that car that became the one that led the race. The guy behind me was the guy to beat, and I was out in front of him. Again, life is a process. And I approach all parts of life just like my practice. Practice is a process. Water skiing, horses. I love horses. I used to say horses and Porsches. We have iron horses. And there's Porsches. The Doctor Killer or the airplane. The airplane for me was that's my second happiest day right there, the day I bought that plane. The first happiest was the day I sold it. It was fun. I flew since I was 18 years old. I was always flying, and that's a high performance 200 knot airplane, but my God, it cost a lot of money, and it wasn't as enjoyable, and the skies were very thin. So I sold that plane. I don't really regret it, but I can say I've had the toys and the family entertainment. Of course, we love the skiing, and that's time for my daughter, for us to go out together. You can learn more and more insurance gimmicks. And when your city or state becomes predominantly managed care, you can do what they're doing in California. You can move. No one wants to do that. You can try and change your personality, your location. You can knock down walls, put up walls, hire an MD or a PT. It's time to get off the new patient roller coaster practice and experience retention-based practice. That's what you all want. I feel the practice you've always wanted is freedom-based, fun, rewarding, exciting. All those pictures of me racing and having fun, my practices were open. I had offices when I had employees that were seeing patients and they were getting good salaries. They were enjoying their career and I was enjoying the fruits of my career. So life should be fun, rewarding, exciting, and exclusive. Chiropractic shouldn't be open to everybody. Make it exclusive, so that people feel special when they come to your chiropractic office. They'll value it more. And then you'll dominate your own market and set your mind to it and make it happen now. It's time to break through to a new life. It's time for you to have more fun in practice. Learn how to work a lighter schedule yet still maintain growth. How to travel with your family. Educate your children in the finest schools. Living in the dream house instead of just dreaming about it. Real freedom. Real financial independence. Don't you agree? Then say yes to more success. I'll be sending you tips to follow that will cause you to focus on what will improve your practice and your financial life. With that under control, you'll immediately experience more certainty for a compelling future and begin to live that dream life you thought you'd have by now. So in closing, I'd like to say once again, I like to mention this. Success is good. Success is good. You can help so many more people in different ways when you are making money and creating financial freedom for yourself and for others. So financial freedom is my goal for every chiropractor for many reasons. But let's start with this, your own reasons. What is it you want in life? What is it you want in practice? Have you written it down? Have you made it crystal clear what you want? Because if you don't write it down, you're not committing it to the universe. So, this is Bruce Parker wishing you an awesome life. And I hope to see you on more videos in the future. And enjoy the series of tips. And you know what? When you see these tips, you might say, well, I've done that, I've done that, I've done that. Yeah, are you doing that? Remember, success leaves clues. I've had clients. I've got a few clients that have been with me for 10, 11 years. They've heard it all probably 10 times over, but they still realize sometimes they got to stay fresh. And they got to make sure they're using the basic rudiments in practice. So if you look at the tips, and if they seem simple to you, ask yourself, am I using them? If you're not using them, it may be something that you might want to consider. I'll see you on the next installment.